December 4th, 1972, Merced, California. A 7-year-old boy is walking home from school. It's a Monday, it's cold, it's overcast. He's on Yosemite Parkway, maybe 3 blocks from his house, when a car pulls up next to him. Now there's a man inside. Says he's collecting donations for his church. Asks the boy if his parents would like to donate. The boy says, sure. He gets in the car. But there's a second man in the vehicle. The boy doesn't know either of them, and they don't take him home. They drive him to a cabin in Cathays Valley, about 40 miles east, middle of nowhere. After 2 days, the driver tells the boy that his parents can't afford to keep him anymore. Says the judge gave this man legal custody. Says his new name's Dennis. The boy is 7. He believes it. Now here's what the boy doesn't know. The man who just took him is a registered offender. His name's Kenneth Parnell, and this isn't his first kidnapping. In 1951, 21 years earlier, Parnell kidnapped and essayed an 8-year-old boy in Bakersfield. He used a fake deputy sheriff's badge that he bought in an army surplus store to lure the child. He got convicted and sent to San Quentin, then to the state hospital for the criminally insane. Now, he escaped, he got caught, he did more time, this time in Utah for armed robbery, and then he gets released in 1967. And by December of 72, he's working as a night auditor at a lodge near Yosemite. So we have a convicted predator on the registry, living in plain sight, and he just grabbed another little boy. And it gets worse. 6 days after the kidnapping, December 10th, 1972, the Merced Police Department receives an anonymous handwritten letter. It's postmarked from Bakersfield. 2 sentences. The letter tells police to investigate an unnamed employee at a local business in connection with the boy's disappearance. And the second sentence says that he has an interest in young boys. Someone new. The police investigate, they find nothing, and the letter goes in the file. And the boy, the 7-year-old who was just told that his parents didn't want him anymore, well, he's enrolled in public school under a fake name in the state of California for 7 years. The boy's name is Steven Stayner, and what happened to his family after he came home, what grew in the shadow of that kidnapping, nobody saw coming. This is one of the darkest stories we've ever told on this channel. I'm John Genoa, and you're watching America's Strangest History, coming at you from the great state of Vermont. This is the story of Steven Stayner. Stay with me. The Stayner family lives at 1655 Beach Street in Merced. Small frame house, quiet neighborhood, lawns are neat, neighbors are friends. Steven's parents are Delbert and Kay. Del's a mechanic at California Canners and Growers. Kay's holding down the fort with 5 kids. Cary's the oldest, he's 11. Then Cindy, 12. Jody, 8. Corey, 7. Now when Steven disappears, Delbert becomes obsessed with finding him. He's out every night, he's searching abandoned buildings, dumps, empty lots. He's driving up and down the San Joaquin Valley. Now Kay checks every group of children that she sees walking down the street. She told a reporter, "The other day we saw a film clip on television. We got a section of the film and spent an hour looking at it because one of the boys looked like Steve." It wasn't him. The Merced police assigned Sergeant James Moore to the case. He puts in 6 hours a week and follows leads as far as Kansas. Gets tips from psychics, follows up on everything, turns up with nothing. And here's what happens to the rest of the family while Delbert's tearing up the valley. The other kids are being forgotten. Delbert later testified under oath that he didn't treat Cary as well after the abduction. Those are his words. Nobody in the Stayner family receives counseling. Not one person. Parents, 4 kids who just lost their brother. Nobody. Cary, the 11-year-old, he blames himself for the kidnapping. He later tells psychiatrists that he believed his bad thoughts somehow caused his brother to be taken. And around the same time, right around the time Steven disappears, Cary is essayed by his uncle. Like, he's 11. He tells no one. Meanwhile, Parnell's moving Steven around Northern California like he's got nothing to hide. And he enrolls Steven in public school under his new name, Dennis Parnell. Steven attends classes at Fort Bragg Elementary School, 4th grade, then a middle school in nearby Mendocino, 5th and 6th grade. Then he transfers to an upper-level school in Point Arena, then to a high school in Manchester. Teachers see him every day. Neighbors interact with him. Other kids play with him. His face is on missing child flyers that were distributed to every elementary school in the state of California, and yet nobody connects it. The Stayner family ran their own campaign. They printed flyers, they distributed them statewide, they got Steven's picture in the California Hospital Association bulletin. They also wrote to their congressman. They wrote to the governor. They got letters back from Bob Mathias and Ronald Reagan saying that the state and federal agencies have been alerted. It didn't matter. Nobody found them because nobody was cross-checking school enrollments against missing children. There was no system for it. No national database for missing kids. There was no protocol requiring schools to verify a child's identity before enrolling them. So a convicted predator walked into a public school, enrolled a kidnapped boy under a fake name, and the state of California just put him in a desk for 7 years. Got that? So what does captivity actually look like for this kid? Well, Parnell doesn't lock Steven in a basement or chain him up. He does something much worse. He builds a life around him. We already know that Steven gets a new name, Dennis Parnell. He gets enrolled in school, makes friends, he plays baseball. He goes to class every day like a normal kid. So from the outside, it looks like a father and son. But from the inside, it's a prison. Parnell essayed Steven repeatedly. He's starting the first night and continuing for years. He controls every part of that boy's world. And the lie holds because Steven is 7 when it starts. And by the time he's old enough to even question it, the lie is all he knows. Now here's a detail that'll break your heart. When Steven was first abducted, within the first few days, he tried to call his parents. He was 7 years old. He didn't know how to dial long distance, couldn't figure it out, and that was it. His one shot at getting home, and he didn't have the skills to pull it off because he was in the 2nd grade. So he stayed, and Parnell kept moving him. They live in a cabin in Cathays Valley first. They bounce around Santa Rosa, Compton, Fort Bragg, Manchester. Always small towns, always rural, always places where nobody asks too many questions. Parnell picks up odd jobs, night auditor, hotel clerk, cook, and Steven goes to school under the name Dennis Parnell every single day. Now, some people who knew them actually described Parnell as a quiet man who seemed to love the boy. A woman named Irene Cook, Parnell's girlfriend at one point, visited him in jail and told reporters that their relationship was purely platonic. She says Parnell was very good to her 4-year-old son, Charlie, offered to be like a father to him. She said she saw nothing physical between Parnell and Steven, and that's what predators do. They build a world where nobody sees it. A psychiatrist named Richard Lowenberg examined Parnell after the 1951 conviction. His evaluation was that Parnell was, quote, a homosexual of the more or less compulsive type, whatever that means. He says Parnell showed a peculiar tendency to search for trouble and punishment. Lowenberg reported that Parnell had developed, quote, an attachment to a younger boy with whom he had no affair, but for whom he felt a real liking. Translation, he'd done it before in the 51 case, and he'd do it again. The pattern was documented. It was in his file. And nobody used it to find Steven. Meanwhile, 7 years go by. Steven grows up. He's a teenager now, 6 feet tall. He's playing baseball at Point Arena High School. He's attending public school under a fake name in the state of California, and he looks nothing like the 7-year-old on the missing child flyer. By his own account, he starts to figure out the truth somewhere in his early teens. He knows something's wrong. He knows Parnell isn't his father, but he's been told the lie so many times for so many years that he doesn't fully trust his own memory. And then, Valentine's Day 1980, Parnell makes a move that changes everything. He grabs another kid. 5-year-old Timmy White snatched right off the street in Ukiah. This time Parnell uses a teenager named Sean Porman, 14-year-old acquaintance of Steven's. He's used to help with the grab. Now, Porman doesn't fully understand what he's doing, but Parnell does. He brings Timmy back to the cabin, and Steven watches. He sees a 5-year-old boy crying, terrified, and he recognizes himself. That's his breaking point. Steven later testified, I didn't want to see what happened to me happen to somebody else. So he makes a decision. March 1st, 1980, Parnell leaves for his night shift at the motel. Steven waits until he's gone. He gets Timmy and he runs. He's 14 years old, carrying a 5-year-old on his back, hitchhiking 40 miles through the dark to Ukiah. Doesn't know the city, doesn't know where Timmy's parents live. He just walks into the police station. The cops look at him and think he's a runaway. They almost send him away. But Steven keeps talking and the story starts to come out in pieces. He tells them that his name is Dennis Parnell, but then he stops. He corrects himself.
I know my first name is Steven.
I know my first name is Steven. An exhaustive search of missing child posters confirms it. The boy from Merced, Missing for 7 years, 2 months, and 25 days, and he's standing in the police station in Ukiah. Now, by daybreak, Kenneth Parnell is in handcuffs, and this is where the system fails again. Parnell's not charged with kidnapping both boys. He's not charged with SA because the statute of limitations expired. Got that? He held a child for 7 years, SA'd him the entire time, and by the time the boy escapes, the clock's already run out on the worst of the charges. So Parnell's sentenced to a mere 7 years for both kidnappings. He ends up serving only 5. His accomplice from the original 72 abduction, Irvin Murphy, he gets 5 years and only ends up serving 2. The teenager, Sean Poorman, he gets sent to a juvenile work camp, and Kenneth Parnell, convicted predator with 2 kidnappings, a documented pattern going back 30 years, he walks out of prison in 1985. 5 years. That's less time than Steven was kept from his family. Steven Stayner comes home to Merced on March 2nd, 1980, and it's a circus. Media trucks line both sides of Beach Street for 3 blocks. TV cameras, reporters, neighbors, the whole town turns out. Steven's a celebrity overnight. The boy who saved Timmy White. It's national news, international news. There's a $15,000 reward. There's a book deal. NBC starts developing a TV movie. Somebody even buys Steven a brand new Pontiac Firebird. And here's the thing nobody's talking about. On the day Steven comes home, there's footage. Delbert and Steven are in the front of the house. They're talking to the press. And in the background, wearing a baseball cap, staring at his brother, is Cary. He watches for a moment, then he turns his head away from the camera and walks out of frame. He's 18. Nobody asks him a single question. His mother, Kay, later said that when Steve came home, everybody else got shoved into the background. Those are her words. Steven's homecoming isn't what anyone expected. The family doesn't recognize him. He doesn't recognize the family. He left when he was 7. He's 14 now. He's a completely different person. And the Stayner house isn't built for this. Steven's allowed to get away with things that the other kids aren't. He gets gifts, clothing, attention, all of it from people who want to be near a famous kid. Cary gets nothing. And remember, Cary hasn't received a single minute of counseling. Nobody's asked him how he's doing. Nobody's asked any of them how they're doing. A psychologist is brought in to evaluate Steven. Now, this is important. He's never asked to evaluate Cary or any other member of the family, just Steven. So that's 1 out of 5 children. And Steven's not doing well either. He's struggling with everything, school, relationships. He's still carrying the trauma from 7 years of abuse that nobody fully understands yet because he's not talking about it. He starts using drugs, getting into trouble. He later told a reporter something that became the defining line of his story. I returned and I lost everything. Think about that. A boy escapes his kidnapper, saves a 5-year-old child, comes home a national hero, and he feels like he's lost everything because the family he came back to wasn't the family he remembered. And the family that waited for him, they didn't get back the boy they lost. Everybody got a stranger. Now, Steven does find some stability eventually. He gets married, has 2 kids, Steven Jr. and Ashley. He works odd jobs, delivers pizza at Pizza Hut on G Street in Merced. He does speaking arrangements at schools, stranger danger talks, trying to use what happened to him to protect other kids. But the trauma never leaves. And on September 16th, 1989, Steven Stayner is riding his motorcycle home from work on Santa Fe Road. It's raining. He's not wearing a helmet. A car pulls out in front of him near the Richmond meatpacking plant and stalls. The road's slick. He's going about 50. He hits the car broadside. Steven Stayner is pronounced dead at the Merced Medical Center at 5:30 p.m. He's 24 years old. The driver who hit him fled the scene. The church parking lot is full for his funeral. Cars lined both sides of the street for 3 blocks, just like the day he came home. Media trucks again, just like in 1980. Timmy White shows up. He's 14 now. He kneels down beside Kay Stayner and takes her hand. She doesn't recognize him at first. He tells her, "He was very special to me, Mrs. Stayner. He saved me." And when reporters track down Kenneth Parnell for a comment, he's on parole in Los Angeles. He tells them, "If Steven stayed with me, he'd still be alive today." That's diabolical. And the tragedies don't stop, because this one family from Beach Street in Merced, they're not done. 1986, Delbert Stayner is accused of SAing his own daughters. Kay takes the girls and moves to her sister's house in Oregon. The parents separate. They later reconcile, but the damage is done. And then December 26, 1990, the day after Christmas, Cary's uncle Jesse Stayner, the same uncle who essayed Cary when he was 11, he's found shot dead in his home with his own shotgun. 3 shots somehow. Cary's living with him the entire time. Cary discovers the body. The murder is never solved. It's curious. After Jesse's death, Cary tries to unalive himself. He survives. In 1995, he has a full breakdown at work. His co-worker, a woman named Sharon Fox, says that Cary told her that he was having terrible dreams about unaliving women. He could no longer control them. He thought he was losing touch with reality. She tells him the Merced County Mental Health Department only offers group therapy. For one-on-one treatment, he'd have to go to Fresno or Modesto. He tells her he can't afford it, so nothing happens. And in 1997, Cary Stayner gets hired as a handyman at the Cedar Lodge Motel. It's located in El Portal, just outside Yosemite National Park. He's alone in the mountains, and nobody's watching. February 15th, 1999, President's Day weekend. 42-year-old Carol Sund is on vacation with her 15-year-old daughter Jolie and their family friend 16-year-old Silvina Peloso from Argentina. Silvina's an exchange student. They've been sightseeing around Yosemite, ice skating, taking photos of each other in front of waterfalls, eating hamburgers at the lodge restaurant. Normal vacation stuff. You get the picture. They're staying at the Cedar Lodge Motel in El Portal, just outside the park, room 509. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath with a private outdoor jacuzzi. They're supposed to check out on the 16th and meet Carol's husband and the rest of the kids at San Francisco Airport. They never make it. Now here's what's happening on the other side of that motel. Cary Stayner's been working at Cedar Lodge since 1997. He's a handyman, he fixes plumbing, he does electrical work, cleans pools, he delivers towels. He lives in a studio apartment right there on the property, and he's been falling apart for years. Remember the breakdown at work in 95? The dreams about unaliving women? The unaliving attempt in 91? By his own account, in his confession to the FBI, he says that he'd been fantasizing about unaliving women for 30 years, since he was 7 years old. That's before Steven was even kidnapped. Now, in November 1998, a few months before the Sun trip, Cary starts dating a woman named Janet Becerra. He tells the FBI that he'd been fantasizing about unaliving her and essaying her young daughters. He planned it out, how he'd do it, how he'd burn the house down afterwards to cover his tracks. He actually went looking for the house, but she'd recently moved and he couldn't find the new address. That's what saved them, not the police or a mental health system, a simple change of address. So by Valentine's Day weekend 1999, Cary says that he knows he was going to do something. He put together what he calls a kit, a backpack with a roll of black duct tape, a knife, some rope, and a gun. The night of February 15th, around 9:45, he takes a walk around the motel. The lodge is quiet. It's slow season, not many guests. He sees 2 cars in the parking lot. One's a white Toyota, belongs to a group of girls in room 177. He walks past it. He's already seen that there's a male staying with them. Too risky. The other car is a red Pontiac Grand Prix, the Sund rental. He notices the curtain to room 509 is partially open. He looks in, sees 2 girls on the bed and the mother reading a book. He doesn't see a man in the room. His words to the FBI, they were vulnerable, easy prey. Here's a detail that shows you this wasn't impulsive. Now, before he knocks on the Sund's door, he knocks on several other rooms first, empty rooms. He knocks, says maintenance out loud, walks in, waits a few seconds, slams the door, and then he moves on to the next one. He did this to desensitize them to the knock on their door. Those are his words. He thought of it on the spot. When he gets close to room 509, he knocks. Carol Sund looks out the window. He tells her there's a water leak and that he needs to check the bathroom. She doesn't want to let him in. He says, okay, I'll go get the manager. Tells her that they might have to move to another room. Carol asks why they'd have to move. Cary says if he could just check the bathroom and there's no leak, they won't have to. So she lets him in. He goes to the bathroom, pretends to check for a leak, comes out, pulls out a gun. Jolie and Silvina, well, they're on a bed watching Jerry Maguire. He tells them that he needs money and he needs their car. He duct tapes all 3 of them. Carol first, mouth taped shut, hands bound. Then he walks Jolie and Silvina to the bathroom, one in the bathtub, one on the floor. He wets towels and puts them on the floor, trying to cover my tracks, trying to make it look like they've been there all night into the morning. Those are his words. He then goes back to Carol, cuts a 3-foot piece of rope from the roll in his backpack. He kneels down over her on the bed, and he strangles her. It takes 5 minutes. He told the FBI he didn't realize how much time it took to strangle a person. After Carol's gone, he wraps up her body in a sheet, puts her in the trunk of the Pontiac, and positions the body so that there's room for someone else. He's planning ahead. He goes back inside, brings the girls out of the bathroom, puts them on separate beds, and tells them he took their mother to the room next door. He essays Jolie, then he strangles Sylvina in the other room, puts her body in the trunk next to Carol. He takes Jolie outside, puts her in the car, and drives. It's the middle of the night on wet, slippery Highway 140. He drives out of the canyon and pulls off near Don Pedro Reservoir, a secluded spot. He attacks Jolie again. Then he cuts her throat and nearly decapitates her. When he's finished, he leaves the body in the brush and drives to a remote spot near Long Barn outside Sierra Village in Tuolumne County, and then he torches it, with Carol and Sylvina still in the trunk. 2 days later, he goes back, grabs Carol's wallet from the car, and he dumps it in Modesto to throw off the police. He also tosses her driver's license on a street where a teenager named Krista Stevens finds it walking to school. And then he does something that should have gotten him caught. He sends an anonymous letter to the FBI, a hand-drawn map showing where Jolie's body is. The top of the letter reads, "We had fun with this one." He mails it in an envelope with his right thumbprint on the stamp. The FBI finds Jolie's body exactly where the map says it is. And now they have a fingerprint. But they don't yet run it against Cedar Lodge employees. They don't run it against Cary Stayner, because by now, the FBI has a completely different theory. The FBI launches a massive investigation. We're talking one of the biggest search operations in California history. The task force is led by FBI Special Agent James Maddock of the Sacramento Field Office. And from the start, they go in a very specific direction. They focus on a group of local ex-cons and meth users from the Modesto area. The street name for meth is Crank, so law enforcement calls these guys cranksters, and the FBI likes them as suspects. The main targets are a 32-year-old convicted felon named Eugene Rufus Dykes and his half-brother, 42-year-old Michael Mick Larwick. Now, Larwick's got a long criminal record. He's arrested in March '99 after a standoff with police. Allegedly fires a gun at a cop after a traffic stop. Dykes reportedly admits to a role in the kidnapping and unaliving of the 3 sightseers. His friends say that they're surprised he'd be involved in something like this. And it's not just Dykes and Larwick. The FBI rounds up several other people from this circle on parole violations, drug charges, whatever they can use to hold them. A federal grand jury convenes in Fresno to hear the evidence. Investigators interview hundreds of tourists and local residents. And here's the problem. They interview Cary Stayner, too. March 3rd, 1999, FBI Special Agent Anthony Alston goes to Cedar Lodge and sits down with Cary in his apartment. Cary tells the agent that he was out of town visiting friends in January and February. He came back to the lodge on Valentine's Day weekend. Says he didn't see the missing women or their vehicle. So the agent leaves and Stayner's eliminated as a suspect. No criminal record, no history of violence. He's a quiet guy. He's a good worker. Meanwhile, the FBI finds cloth fiber in a truck used by some of the crankster suspects, and this strengthens the case. So the FBI doubles down. And on June 9th, 1999, that's 4 months after the deaths, Agent Maddock goes public. He tells the Sacramento Bee, "I do feel that we have all the main players in jail." Got that? The lead FBI agent on the Yosemite murders case goes on the record in a major newspaper and says that they got the killers. The case is effectively closed. And here's where that statement cost someone their life. There's a cab driver named Jenny Paul. She picked up a passenger back around the time of the murders who made her feel uncomfortable. The guy didn't tip. He acted strange. He made comments about Bigfoot during the ride to the Sierra Village and Yosemite Valley Lodge. She thought about calling the FBI, but then Maddock announced that they had the suspects in custody, so she didn't call. And it wasn't until she saw Cary Stayner's face on TV after his arrest that she realized he was her passenger. So she called the FBI then. The agents told her that the information was critical because it placed him in the area. But it was too late, Because on July 21st, 1999, that's 5 months after the Sund murders, while the FBI is celebrating having their main players locked up, Cary Stayner drives through Yosemite National Park, down into the tiny residential settlement of Foresta. It's a handful of privately owned cabins just in the hills inside the park. He spots a woman, 26-year-old Joy Ruth Armstrong. She's a naturalist at Yosemite Institute, teaches children's groups about nature, guides them through the park. She grew up in Orlando. She loved the outdoors. She recently climbed Mount Shasta, made it 900 feet up El Capitan. Joy lives in a green cabin with white trim on Old Coulterville Road, 4 miles from El Portal. No electricity. She carries water from a nearby creek to her garden. She shares the cabin with her boyfriend and another roommate. But on this day, July 21st, she's alone. She's packing for a trip to visit friends in the Bay Area and then her grandmother. It's around 6:30 p.m., still light out. Cary shows up. He later tells FBI it was a chance meeting. He'd been driving around Foresta looking for Bigfoot, and he saw her. He says he couldn't resist the urge to unalive her when he realized that she was alone. Joy put up a fight. Unlike the Sons and Sylvina, she fought back. But Cary overpowered her. He unalived her and disarticulated her head, left her body partway submerged in a nearby stream. Her head was tossed a short distance away. They found her body the next day, July 22nd. Now here's what happens next. Witnesses saw Cary's car, his International Scout. It was parked near Joy's cabin. 7 witnesses saw this. A park ranger who'd given Cary a ride the night before identified him from a photograph. Cary realizes that he left evidence everywhere, so he goes back to Cedar Lodge, he packs a bag and runs. He drives 620 miles to a nudist colony called Laguna del Sol near Sacramento. 2 days later, July 24th, FBI agents find him there. And here's where it really gets interesting. Before he gives his confession, Cary tries to negotiate. He asks the FBI for the reward money, housing preferences, and another thing that I won't dare say on this channel. All of this in exchange for telling them what happened. The forensic psychiatrist who later examined him called this a lack of social judgment and emotional intelligence. Translation? He has no idea how the world works. But once Agent Jeff Reinach sits him down in the Sacramento field office, Cary talks. He confesses to all 4 murders. He gives details only the killer would know. And the agents are able to recover evidence confirming everything he says. The cranksters the FBI spent months investigating, they had nothing to do with it. Not one of them. The FBI arrested the wrong people. Went to a grand jury with the wrong theory. Went on the record saying that they had the killers. And while they were doing all that, Cary Stayner was free. Free to walk around El Portal. Free to swim in the Cedar Lodge pool. Free to walk through the park. And free to kill Joy Armstrong. Senator Chuck Grassley, senior member of the Senate Judiciary Committee, put it plainly. The dismissal of Cary Stayner as a suspect by the FBI means that the latest killing may have been preventable. And FBI agent Maddock, he stood in front of the camera after Cary's arrest and said, "I ask myself if I could have done anything differently that would have prevented the death of Joy Armstrong. I've struggled with that over the past 24 hours, and I continue to do so. But I'm confident that we've done everything that reasonably could have been done." Really? Because there's a cab driver who'd disagree. And there's a thumbprint on an envelope that says otherwise. And there's a 26-year-old woman who spent the last day on Earth packing for a trip that she never took. So now Cary Stayner's in custody, and he's facing 2 separate trials. Federal court for the murder of Joy Armstrong, because it happened in federal land inside Yosemite National Park, and state court in Santa Clara County for the murders of Carol Sund, Jolie Sund, and Sylvina Peloso. The federal case goes first, and Cary makes a deal. He pleads guilty to Armstrong's murder in exchange for life in prison without parole, so no death penalty. And during the sentencing hearing, something unexpected happens. Cary breaks down in tears. He says, "I wish I could take it back, but I can't. I wish I could tell you why I did such a thing, but I don't even know myself. I'm so sorry. I wish there was a reason, but there isn't. It's senseless." Joy Armstrong's mother, Leslie, who'd been diagnosed with cancer just months before Joy was killed, she starts crying in the courtroom. She later says that she believed the apology was genuine. Now for the state trial. This one's different. It's California. Cary pleads not guilty by reason of insanity to the Sund and the Peloso murders, and the trial becomes a deep dive into what was going on inside Cary Stayner's head. The defense brings in multiple forensic psychiatrists. Dr. Jose Silva evaluates Cary and diagnoses him with pervasive developmental disorder, anxiety disorder with obsessive-compulsive features, pedophilia, voyeurism, paraphilia, depressive disorder, and personality disorder with schizoid, schizotypal, antisocial, and narcissistic features. That's not one diagnosis, that's a list. Silva doesn't believe Cary's a psychopath, but he says the combination of these disorders had a significant impact on Cary's ability to control his conduct. So, in a way, they're saying Cary's the victim. Here's where the family history comes in. Silva discovers that the Stayner family has an extensive history of psychiatric illness going back a century. Multiple family members across generations suffered from paraphilia, pedophilia, mood disorders, psychosis, exhibitionism, and OCD. Cary's father, Delbert, appeared to suffer from pedophilia and depression. His mother, Kay, depression and mild autism. Remember, Delbert was accused of essaying his own daughter in 1986. There's also evidence that Kay had an accident shortly before delivering Cary, and a prenatal brain injury would support the developmental disorder diagnosis. So you've got a kid who may have been neurologically compromised before he was ever born. He grew up in a family with generational psychiatric illness, whose brother gets kidnapped when he's 11, who gets essayed by his uncle around the same time, gets no counseling, no support, no treatment. His father neglects him. His brother comes home, gets all the attention. He tells a coworker he's having violent fantasies and losing touch with reality. And the county mental health system tells him to go to group therapy. Now, the trichotillomania is an important detail. That's compulsive hair pulling, literally pulling out your hair in clumps. And Cary had it from age 3 years old. It continued through high school. He wore a baseball cap every day to hide the bald spots. He got bullied for it. He sought treatment in his early 30s, got prescribed medication, but stopped taking it because of the side effects. Sedation, dry mouth, impotence. Nobody followed up. Dr. Fred Berlin, another psychiatrist, diagnosed Cary with paraphilia and OCD. He believed Cary's sexual disorders worked in conjunction with his OCD. It created a compulsion to commit the crimes. He also believed Cary may have suffered from a psychopathology that manifested as a loss of touch with reality. And then there's the Bigfoot thing. Cary talked about seeing Bigfoot near Foresta constantly. Told friends, told coworkers, he even told the FBI. Was he lying? Delusional? Was it a cover story for why he was always driving around Foresta? Nobody knows. But the psychiatrist flagged it as evidence of preoccupation consistent with a developmental disorder. Now here's what the prosecution argued. They said, forget the diagnoses. Let's look at what he did. He put together a kit, tape, rope, knife, gun. He scoured the parking lot. He checked for males in the rooms. He knocked on empty doors to desensitize the victims. He lied his way through the door with some kind of water leak story. He positioned one body in the trunk to make room for the next. He drove 50 miles in the middle of the night to dump the body separately. He burned the car. He moved the wallet to Modesto. He tossed the license on a random street. He sent a taunting letter to the FBI with a map. And then he went back to work at Cedar Lodge Pool like nothing happened. For 5 months. That's not somebody who can't control himself. That's somebody who planned, executed, and covered his tracks. The jury agreed. They rejected Cary's insanity plea. They found him guilty of 3 counts of first-degree murder, plus kidnapping, and attempted SA. But then came the penalty phase, and the jury was split 3 ways. First ballot, 5 votes for death, 4 for life, 3 undecided. Several jurors said that the issue of Cary's mental illness and his tragic family background weighed heavily here. One juror later said that the deliberation was about whether suffering from a disadvantaged, traumatized family background and mental illness is enough to save him from the death penalty. Turns out, the answer was no. By the time they finished, 10 voted for death, 2 for life. Cary Stayner was sentenced to death. He's on death row in San Quentin, still there today. Now, one more thing, because this story has a coda, and it goes back to where we started. Kenneth Parnell, remember him? The man who kidnapped Steven Stayner in 1972. He essayed him for 7 years. He got sentenced to 7 years and served 5, and then he walked out a free man in 1985. Remember that guy? Well, in January 2003, Parnell is 71 years old. He's living in an apartment on Matthew Street in Berkeley. He's in a wheelchair, diabetes, emphysema, the aftermath of a stroke. He needs round-the-clock care from a home health aide. And even with all that, he tries to do it again. He calls one of his caregivers, a woman named Diane Stevens, and he asks her to buy him a child, a 4-year-old boy to be specific, for $500. He tells her he wants an English-speaking boy between the ages of 4 and 6. He wants a birth certificate so that he can enroll the kid in school. And Stevens testifies that Parnell, using a more graphic term, he made it clear what he intended to do to the child. The prosecutor told the jury that this suggests a more lurid and lustful purpose. Stevens went to the police. No child was ever handed over. No specific child had ever even been targeted. But the prosecution argued that the intent was crystal clear. Prosecutor Tim Wellman's closing argument was a slideshow. First slide, a photo of Steven Stayner marked 1. Second slide, Timmy White marked 2. Third slide, a blank screen marked 3. It's the child that would have been next. Parnell's convicted of attempting to purchase a child and attempted essaying of a child. Under California's 3 strikes law, he gets 25 years to life. It's the harshest sentence that's handed down under the 3 strikes law at that point. Steven's father, Delbert, told the Associated Press, "That man should never have gotten out of prison in the first place." His words. Kenneth Parnell dies in prison on January 1st, 2008. He's 76. And we already know Cary Stayner's still on death row. So what do we got? A convicted child predator kidnaps a 7-year-old boy in 1972, and the system gives him 5 years. The family that lost the boy is never offered counseling. The older brother, neglected, essayed by his uncle, psychologically disintegrating for 2 decades, asks for help, and the county tells him that he can only go to group therapy. The FBI investigates 4 murders and arrests the wrong people. They go on the record saying that they've got the killers. And while they're celebrating, the real killer takes a 5th victim. Every system failed. And the question the Stayner story leaves us with isn't whether Cary Stayner was born a killer or made into one. It's whether anyone was paying attention at all. I'm John Genoa. This is America's Strangest History. Thanks for watching.